Right, so yesterday, Peter Strzok, you remember this guy. This is the guy who is an FBI agent having an affair with another FBI agent, and he was texting with her the whole time about how much he hated Donald Trump. And this only matters because Peter Strzok was in charge of both the Hillary Clinton email investigation as well as the Trump-Russia collusion investigation. And as you will also recall, the Inspector General of the DOJ, Michael Horowitz, found that Peter Strzok's bias against President Trump could not be counted out when it came to analyzing his activities with regard to these investigations. So, for example, there was a point in late September when it became clear to the FBI that there were Hillary Clinton emails on Huma Abedin's computer. Instead of prioritizing that and checking it out, Peter Strzok decided it was imperative to put all of his resources on the supposed Trump-Russia collusion that was happening. And instead of checking out the Hillary thing, he checked out the Trump thing. That delayed the Hillary thing until late in the election cycle. Ironically, that ended up boosting Hillary Clinton out of the presidency. It ended up creating a Donald Trump presidency, possibly by allowing the FBI and James Comey to re-announce an opening of Hillary's email investigation like 5-6 days before the election actually happened. So Peter Strzok is, he's the guy who wrote that he would stop Trump from becoming president. He was the guy who wrote that all of these ignorant hillbillies were going to vote for Trump. He's a real joy to behold. So he shows up on the Hill yesterday, and he's testifying in front of the House Government Oversight Committee. Let me say at the outset, I don't think that this was a useful hearing. The reason I don't think this was a useful hearing is because no new information was available. We already knew what Peter Strzok was going to say about all of this because it said all of it in the Inspector General report. The only thing that would have been useful is if the members of the House Committee on Oversight, if the Government Oversight Committee, if they'd actually asked Strzok about specific instances of decision-making and whether those decisions were biased by his anti-Trump hatred. Right? So if they had actually had in front of them like a complete timeline of Peter Strzok's decision-making from the initiation of the Hillary Clinton email investigation and the Russia collusion investigation all the way through today and said, okay, here's all your decisions. Here's why this one seems biased. Explain yourself. That would have been useful. Instead, what it turned into was a lot of grandstanding and browbeating. It did, however, make Peter Strzok look pretty terrible because Peter Strzok is, it turns out, a garbage human. And when I say he's a garbage human, I say this advisedly. You know, there's a moment yesterday when Louis Gohmert got a lot of flack because Louis Gohmert went after Strzok, and he went after Strzok for cheating on his wife, and you know, then texting with this lover about Donald Trump all the way through. Here was Representative Gohmert from Texas going after Strzok yesterday.
There is the disgrace. And it won't be recaptured anytime soon because of the damage you've done to the justice system. And I've talked to FBI agents around the country. You've embarrassed them. You've embarrassed yourself. And I can't help but wonder when I see you looking there with a little smirk, how many times did you look so innocent into your wife's eye and lie to her about Lisa?
Mr. Chairman, this is outrageous.
Okay, and Democrats go crazy over all of this, of course. Now, is it ironic the Republican members are chastising Peter Strzok over having an affair when Louis Gohmert, I like Louis, I'm friendly with Louis, when Louis campaigned for Roy Moore in Alabama, when Louis was a big Trump supporter? Is it a little ironic? Yes, of course it's a little ironic. But I will point out that I would like for there to be a standard that adultery is bad in the country, so it doesn't really bother me that Peter Strzok is getting smacked around over the fact that he was cheating on his wife with another FBI agent and texting little nothings, sweet nothings about Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump to her. That doesn't bother me in the slightest. Okay, so Strzok made himself look really bad yesterday. He started off the hearing by saying that even this questioning is a win for Vladimir Putin. And he's becoming a hero to the left because of all of this. It's sort of an Oliver North moment from the 1980s during Iran-Contra. Oliver North was the colonel who had been involved in smuggling weapons to the Contras in Nicaragua. And he was questioned by Democrats. A lot of Republicans came to his aid. Peter Strzok is having the same thing happen to him, even though he's kind of a yucky human. He has a bunch of Democrats who are now rushing to defend him and talk about how wonderful he is because he suggests that even this line of questioning helps Vladimir Putin.
I have the utmost respect for Congress's oversight role, but I strongly believe today's hearing is just another victory notch in Putin's belt and another milestone in our enemy's campaign to tear America apart.
Okay, well, there are serious questions to be asked about Peter Strzok. Yeah, I don't think that having a hearing about whether the FBI was biased in its investigation is irrelevant. This is the job of the Government Oversight Committee. I don't think that this is a huge problem. Darrell Issa, again, this is all grandstanding. It was all very entertaining, but I don't think anybody came out of this looking great. Darrell Issa made Peter Strzok read his texts, and it was kind of hilarious.
And I'm going to just go to a date and then ask you to read your own words. March 4th, 2016.
You want me to read this?
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. OMG, he's an idiot. Now the pressure really starts to finish MYE. Hi, how is Trump other than a douche? Melania?
Ms. Page said, not ever going to become president, right? Right?
No, he's not. We'll stop it.
Repeat that again.
No, he's not. We'll stop it.
So there is Strzok reading back his own text. And obviously, this is the guy who's now proclaiming that he has no bias. Everything was fine. He explained his text messages, his anti-Trump text messages, by basically suggesting he did nothing wrong. That when he said, we'll stop it, as a high-ranking member of the FBI, meaning Trump's campaign, we'll stop Trump from becoming president, he didn't mean me. He didn't mean the FBI. He meant the American people in general. We'll stop it, We'll stop all of this. Is that really what Peter Strzok meant? No, that's not really what Peter Strzok meant, but here he is lying about it.
It would be his candidacy for the presidency, and my sense that the American population would not vote him into office.
Right.
I don't recall writing that text.
Are you denying writing the text?
What I can tell you is that text in no way suggested that I or the FBI would take any action to influence the candidacy of
Agent
candidate
Strzok,
Trump.
that is a fantastic answer to a question nobody asked.
Okay, so the Strzok there saying, I didn't buy it. Now, but that's the point. Okay, so here is that actual little exchange where Gowdy says to him, that's a great answer to the question nobody asked. But that's the only question that matters, honestly. The only question that matters is not whether Peter Strzok hated Donald Trump. We know Peter Strzok hated Donald Trump. I'll bet there are a bunch of people in the FBI who weren't real fond of Hillary Clinton either. The real question is, was the investigation biased? And this is why I say that I think this hearing was kind of a waste of time, because it didn't get to the question of whether his actual actions impacted the actions of the FBI in the Russia investigation. And for that, we're going to have to wait for more information to come out. Now, does it demonstrate that Peter Strzok is the worst? Yeah, the guy's pretty much the worst. I mean, there's a GIF going around of Peter Strzok making these weird faces, and it's like Kevin Spacey from Seven. I mean, the guy's a weirdo. But does that actually answer the question as to whether the Russia investigation was from the very outset poisoned by the FBI, directed at making sure that Trump was not president, corruptly investigated? Now, I have my suspicions, but those suspicions were not actually provided with any evidentiary support during this hearing. Now, we got to be objective in how we view this. Okay, yes, Peter Strzok is terrible. Yes, the Democrats who defend him for all of this are ridiculous. But if you're going to imply that Peter Strzok was responsible for an investigation that was utterly corrupt beginning to end, you actually need to show some evidence that he's responsible for corrupt portions of the investigation. Now, I'm waiting to hear that because there's an actual Inspector General report that's going to come out about the Russia investigation. And as I've suggested, I don't think it's anywhere out of the realm of possibility that the Russia investigation, the collusion investigation, was tainted from the outset by Strzok and his anti-Trump bias. I don't think that's impossible at all. What I do think is that if the Republicans were going to have this hearing, they should have hit him with all of that stuff. They should have had that information. They should have made that information public. Again, none of this is to suggest that Strzok is innocent. I don't think Strzok is innocent. Right? For example, Strzok was asked how long how long did it take him to start talking about impeachment after James Comey was fired? Trey Gowdy was asking him this question, is clip 7.
Do you remember how long it took for you to start talking about impeachment after Bob Mueller was appointed?
I don't, sir.
1 day. 1 day. And you were talking about impeachment.
Okay, that's true. And it shows again that Strzok was wildly biased against Trump, disliked President Trump. We knew all of that already. So the real question was, okay, so what impact did that have on the investigation? The answer probably is some impact, but we need to see the evidence of that impact before we can say the entire investigation needs to be thrown out top to bottom. Now, I don't think the investigation is going to come up with anything anyway. I think the investigation is likely to come up short on a variety of issues. I don't think it's going to reach all the way to President Trump. I don't think it's going to show that President Trump and the Trump campaign actively colluded with the Russian government. I don't think any of the evidence is there for any of that. But what I do think is that Peter Strzok and the FBI need to do a much better job of cleaning up exactly how it is that they are pursuing these issues, because obviously it's dirty in the way they are pursuing it. The question is how dirty and how impactful. Now, it's not stopping Democrats from defending Peter Strzok. And Democrats are out full force defending Strzok, saying that Strzok is just a smug as he is. And the smugness matters here. Hey, listen, I have a certain amount of sympathy for people who are smug, considering that I'm a charter member of the Smug Club. But if, in fact, Peter Strzok is really smug about what he believes, what that tends toward is a certain level of certainty in his activity with regards to his professionalism. Right? He tends to believe that his opinion is fact, which is why he's so smug about it. When you start to believe that your opinion is fact, well, that tends to creep into a mission mission skew. It tends to allow you to believe that the stuff you are doing is legitimate, even when it's slightly illegitimate. And again, we're going to have to wait to see the facts come out as to how badly he botched the investigation, but I'd be very surprised if there was no botchery whatsoever. Democrats, however, are out defending Strzok because Strzok is a hero. So Steve Cohen, who's a Democratic congressman from, I believe, Tennessee, he says that Peter Strzok should be given a Purple Heart.
If I could give you a Purple Heart, I would. You deserve one. This has been an attack on you in a way to attack Mr. Mueller and the investigation that is to get at Russia collusion involved in our election.
Okay, so that's great. The Democrats say that he deserves a Purple Heart. Purple Heart is for wounded veterans, people who've served in the military and been wounded in the line of duty. Peter Strzok doesn't deserve a Purple Heart. Peter Strzok deserves a pink slip. Not a Purple Heart, a pink slip. I mean, the guy should be fired. And this is a guy who has disgraced the FBI, no matter how you slice it. But according to the Democrats, because he sent a bunch of anti-Trump text messages, he deserves a Purple Heart. Now, what's hilarious about this is that it's probably Peter Strzok's fault that Hillary Clinton is not president right now. If Peter Strzok had simply investigated the Hillary Clinton email stuff on Huma Abedin's computer and released that in early October, as opposed to the very tail end of October, then Hillary Clinton wouldn't face that round of bad headlines at the end of October. She may very well have won. So they want to give a Purple Heart now to the same people who might be responsible for Donald Trump being president in the first place. It's really hilarious. They do the same thing with James Comey. Right? James Comey was the guy who released a letter right before the election saying Hillary Clinton was under investigation again by the FBI. And now they love James Comey. The left can really be bought for a song. All you have to do is scream about how much you dislike Trump, and the left suddenly loves you. The left suddenly is just it's become an entry key to the leftist kind of lounge if you dislike President Trump. It's funny. The other night, I went with my wife over to a place in Los Angeles called the Magic Castle. The Magic Castle is just spectacular. It's a lot of fun. And we went there for our 10th anniversary. And one of the magicians there, who's this very famous magician, he's got a show on Netflix, I believe. He started off his little routine with a joke about Trump. He said, I was in New York, and everybody cheers. And then he goes, and I walked past Trump Tower, and everybody starts booing. And I thought to myself,